right, we are here with the 6A state tournament MVP, the 6A MVP, Coleman Atwater, first team All-State. I mean, we could go on and on with these accolades. This is going to be super fun, and we're excited to hear from you. Take me through this last season, and obviously I'm assuming it met your expectations, but did you go into the year knowing that this was a possibility?
Yes, I did. I believed right when the last season ended, when I knew the group of guys that we had coming in, that we would have a team to have a chance to do it. And I think really a defining moment for that belief in me was when we had a parent meeting. We had a parent meeting, I think, right about this time of the year, but last year. And we really just talked about what our goals were as a team and kind of what our roles were. Like, we were super upfront, super early. And I just saw the looks on everybody's faces and their emotions towards knowing what their roles were already, and just the commitment to the team that I felt from literally day one. I could feel something a little different. And, underperforming a little bit the seasons before that a little bit. I had some pretty good personal success, and we went farther than people thought, but we didn't quite get to the end. I felt something different for sure from day one.
You mentioned the previous seasons maybe not making it all the way. What was different this year over last year?
Yeah, I've said this to a lot of people already. It's the same thing that I've always said, and it was just trust. It was a really unique group of guys, starting from us 4 seniors on the team all the way down. We all just trusted each other to do our part, and then we actually went and did our part. And it was every single day, whether it was lifting or just getting in the individual work, that I don't think we did as well the seasons before. And so I think when it got to the season time before this year, it was a little bit of Davis versus Davis. It was a little bit of, okay, I want to get more playing time. I want to shoot a little more. But this year it was, we're going to win. And everybody just knew exactly what their role was, what their part in winning was. And then we trusted each other that we were going to go all in on that. And you saw that towards the end in the games.
Yeah, you talking about your roles at the very beginning of, this time last year. What was your role? What was that? How was that communicated to you?
My role is it's kind of the dream, honestly. It was they wanted me to take over when I could take over, but I needed to be a leader. It wasn't just, Coleman, we need you to shoot 10 3-pointers in this game, every game. The coaches would tell me, and I took the role of, I needed to get my teammates to be their best as well as myself. I needed to help my teammates understand that when they made mistakes, that they need to get right back up and keep pushing and keep fighting every single day, no matter how good the day before or how good the game before was or bad. And then I had to do my part and put the ball in the hoop. I was off the ball most of the year. I didn't bring the ball up like a lot of the other great players. I wasn't really a point guard. And so I had to learn how to be super efficient coming off of off-ball stuff, 1 or 2 moves and getting a bucket, but then always making the right play and keeping everyone accountable.
Yeah, you being such a prolific scorer, I think at the end of the year, it ended up you were second in 6A in scoring. But to see that scoring output on a team that wins the state championship is rare. A lot of times there's a lot of distribution there, and you have really high scoring players on maybe not great teams, but they just are funneling through it. So take me through that concept of every game that you went into, the other team is trying to figure out, how do we stop Coleman Atwater? How do we keep him from hurting us? How do you approach that mindset and that philosophy, knowing that they're going to give you their best?
I love it. I think it makes me play better. When the other team is going to face guard me, or I'm at the top of the scouting report, in previous years, and it comes from experience, in previous years it's happened a little bit, and I've seen other players before kind of just give into it a little bit. The other team doesn't let them catch it where they want to catch it, and then they don't impact the game as much. And I was like, what if I could flip that? What if I could work so hard to be in great shape and to get strong enough and skilled enough at all 3 levels, 3s, mid-range layups, attacking the rim. If they're going to try and face guard me, I'm going to get the ball wherever I can, and I'm going to go right at you. I think that was a huge driving force for me. Is my motto for the season was make it happen. I knew that teams were going to face guard me every game, and it happened every game. And it made me excited, which I think is kind of opposite for a lot of high school players, is they kind of get a little nervous, they kind of get scared, they kind of shy away. But I wanted to go at them because I've tried to face guard people before, and it's hard. It's hard to face guard someone for an entire game. And so if I could go at the defense, no matter what defense they put on me, if I could get strong enough to do that, then I knew it was going to be very helpful for our team. And
there's a lot I want to dive into here for a few reasons. I've got a 9-year-old here who thinks you are awesome, and he loves watching high school basketball. He's very skilled. And then in games, he has a tendency to worry about missing a shot. He has a tendency to worry about, what if my teammates think I'm a ball hog? What if I look silly? So have you ever weighed or kind of had those thoughts in your mind as well, to where, and how do you get over that? Does that make sense?
Yes, I got you. I experienced the same thing, the exact same thing. And, I kind of grew up, when I was really young, I was a little bit faster, more athletic than a lot of kids when I was super young. And so some of that stuff was easier for me to score. But as I started to get through elementary and into junior high, kind of that, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, all that stuff, I faced that head on. I faced the whole thought process of, I worried about what my teammates thought a lot and what my coach was thinking. I didn't want to be that ball hog. I wanted to make the right play every time. I kind of faced that in high school too. My sophomore and junior year, I think there were a lot of people telling me after every game, you should do more, you should shoot more shots, you should do this and that. But I just continued to make the right play. And then I think this year I really took my confidence up to another level, kind of breaking that. But I think it dials into trust. I think the trust factor is really big. I think my coach trusting in me and my teammates trusting in me to be able to shoot and to be able to make the plays when I wanted to make them was a big part of that. Confidence comes from the work that you put in. And so for your son here, or for anyone out there that's struggling with some of that confidence in themselves, or maybe worrying about the outside stuff, you can't control the outside stuff at all, but you can control what you're doing for yourself in terms of your skill and your strength in basketball. You'll realize once you start working on your shot more and more and more, the more confident you feel in games when you shoot it more and more and more. And the more you work on ball handling, the more confident in the game you're going to be ball handling. And so I think working enough on yourself to get to that level, working super hard on what you're good at, finding what you're really good at or what you want to be good at, and just becoming the best at that builds your confidence any more than anyone telling you you're good will ever do.
There's two ways I kind of want to go from that, because that's so great. Number one, you talked about all of kind of the voices, right? So there's what you believe, there's what your coach believes, your assistant coaches might tell you something a little bit different, your teammates, both your starters and the bench players, you've got your friends in the hallway, you've got teachers and administrators, you've got parents, other fans, you've got all these voices saying, Coleman, here's what you should do. Either you should shoot less, or the opposite of you should shoot every time you touch the ball. How do you filter through all of the noise, all of those voices?
I just had to ask myself what I really wanted. And, did I want to look cool in front of all my friends or in front of a lot of, people that I know that aren't necessarily a part of Davis High basketball, but that watch? Did I want to look cool by shooting it a bunch and scoring, 30 points a game, but losing? Or did I want to cut the nets down and win a championship and do what my team needed me to do? And once I, asked myself that enough times and realized winning the championship, which I can now say is much better than scoring 2,000 points in your career or scoring 30 points a game, it's better. It's better to win. And so from that point on, when people would tell me certain things, I would agree with them. I'd be totally nice to them, and I would say, yeah, thanks for your thoughts, thanks for your opinions. We got a fun game tomorrow night, and we're going to go out and we're going to go win. But when I was with my team, what we talked about as a team was what I truly believed. What my coaches would say is what I actually knew that I needed to do to win. And it's not that I didn't listen to what the other people said, but it was more of just, I knew what I needed to do for my team to win. I know what my role was, what I needed to get better at. And then I just was grateful for everyone for following along. And then when we won, doing what your team needed to do was more important.
That's awesome. So that was the first vein of kind of the voices. And the second one you talked about was the preparation that you put in to feel the confidence to perform the way you did. So for those that are coming up into high school, the realities of high school basketball, not just to make the team, but then to be a standout star in basketball. So many kids, I think, go to practice and then go home.
Yes.
And so what is the realities of your work ethic and what you did of practice? We'll call it as 2 hours a day, just as the scheduled, organized practice. What did your life look like outside of that?
So I have kind of an interesting story about this year that's specific that I don't think many other kids have. Is I have a very demanding school schedule as well as basketball. I've got some of the highest level classes in the school, and that takes a lot of time as well as basketball. And so when I would go to practice, I wanted to be there. Instead of, I think for a lot of high school kids, it's, I have to go to practice today. For me, it was, I want to go to practice today. Because, I was able to focus so much on my school and build up whatever emotions, frustration, joy, whatever it was in school, and then just go and play and have fun enjoying the game of basketball. And so I think that plays a big part of it, is basketball was my love, was my hobby this year more than other years. And so that allowed me to get even more out of practice than I think most players. But then when I went home, it was all visualization for me. When I was doing homework or when I was, resting, recovering on the couch, or even before I go to bed, I would think in my brain about winning the championship or performing at a high level. And I would just visualize it to the point where it basically felt real to me. Like I would just constantly be thinking about basketball majority of the day. I have a goal where usually I try and shoot about 500 extra shots on my own. But, sometimes I would really get that goal. Other times I would go in. I'm fortunate to have, a small gym, a hoop in my house. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity and that resource. But I would take the visualization that I would have and I would just go in the gym and just visualize playing in a game, playing in a big moment, shooting a big shot. I know I'm going to come off this screen here and I'm going to shoot it. The defense does this, I'm going to make this move and I'm going to shoot a layup. And on my own time, I would just visualize what I knew I was going to have to do in a game to win, and I would go and do it until the point where it became easy for me. Mm-hmm. Another thing about the preparation is, a lot of people ask me about my shot. How did I get to the point where I'm shooting 42 mid-40s percentage-wise and making the most in the state? Because that's not easy. But I would watch the best players in the world. I love Stephen Curry, and I would watch him before every game, in my free time when I'm sitting on the couch instead of being on my phone or even instead of hanging out with friends. I really didn't go to parties or hang out a whole lot. You can ask my other teammates. I wasn't super involved in that outside social stuff during the season. And instead I would watch like Stephen Curry or other great NBA shooters. And I would ask myself, why are they so good? Why is Steph Curry the only guy? He's able to just walk up the court, and if your hands are down, he's shooting, it's going in. And I was like, I wonder if I could be that way in high school, the high school version of that, just that level of shooting. And so when I would go in the gym by myself, instead of just kind of playing around with no direction, I would kind of visualize like, okay, Steph Curry kind of does this kind of move. Like, here's a situation within Davis's offense that I might have a similar opportunity. And so I started shooting those kind of difficult shots, those deep threes, off the dribble threes, step back threes, and all that stuff. Kind of acting like I was Steph Curry, or just visualizing myself being that guy, being a great shooter that way, until it just became who I was.
I want to go to the state championship game coming down the stretch. Super tight game. You guys were a little bit behind for most of the game until about 4.5 minutes or so is left. And then you had this move where it was a hard pound dribble to your right, spin move to your left, layup, that it just looked so smooth. And that's not something that's easy for people, like general human beings, to pull off that move in that situation with one of the best defenders in the state on you, plus a great team. Is that a move that you had practiced before? Is that just kind of it came to you in the game?
That had been my main move, kind of the spin move, going right, spinning back to my left. That had been my main move my sophomore and my junior year. I practiced that a lot. It was what was comfortable for me. It was kind of like a counter move for me. For me, it's if I catch it and your hands are down, I'm shooting it. If not, if you're up on me when I catch it, I'm ripping left, I'm going right by you, I'm going to finish or kick it out. But if not, and if guys force me right, and I knew a lot of guys would force me right this year, being left-handed. And so my natural move was to kind of come back to my left, do what's comfortable. And so I worked on that a lot because it's hard to guard. It's really hard to guard someone who's going hard one direction and all of a sudden spins back the other direction and bumps you and then finishes. But I really didn't use it a lot my senior year, because I think a lot of people knew that I'd like to come back to my left. But I had worked on it a lot up until that point. And then I think in the championship game, big moment, you fall back on your habits. And, that spin move, if I go right and they jump to cut me off, I know that I can spin back and get to my left-hand scoop layup just like I did and make it and feel very comfortable. So yes, I have been practicing it for multiple years.
Yeah, that's awesome. At what moment in that state championship game did you realize we're state champions? Because it had to come before the buzzer rang.
Yeah.
But was there a moment there where you realized in the middle of the game, looking at the crowd, looking at your teammates, this is it?
It was before the game, honestly. We had kind of a meeting with the captains and the coaches and the refs and some of the people that put on the state tournament before the game. One of the people in there said, we want you guys to go out there and play your hardest and just know that both of you are winners. And me being a hyper competitor, right there I decided there's only going to be one winner today.
Yeah.
And, just kind of that's just kind of a weird thing about me. The whole thing about, you both made it to the championship game, and both your teams are very good, number 1 and 2 in the state. Both have great players, have accomplished so much. Both won your regions. So you're both winners because you made it to the championship game. Both teams are coming out with a trophy. But there's a quote. I don't remember who said it, but my dad taught it to me. And it was, when players get to these big games like this, you can either go out there and go get it and change your life, or you can go out there and just kind of play and get a little kind of overwhelmed by the moment. And if you lose, then your life is kind of the same after. If you lose, your life is going to be about the same. But if you win, it changes your life forever. Mm-hmm. And so just taking all that stuff into the game. So before the game, I had decided for myself I wasn't going to let us lose. And of course, there's a lot that happens after. You can't just say I'm going to win before the game and win. But in the game, there was a moment, I don't know if it was third or fourth quarter, but when we went on that 17-2 run, there was a different feeling in guys like me and Bodie Sparrow, JT Turley, and honestly the whole team. But there was a different feeling defensively where I could tell we ratcheted it up. And we had done it multiple games in the season. And so I knew what it felt like. And I think what did we get down? We got down 9 or 10 in that game, 11. And we were down by 11 in the first quarter of the game before that in the semis. And it was kind of unique about our team this year is when we were down 8 or 10, we were still smiling. We were like, 10's not going to be enough. We knew that once we made the adjustments and figured it out defensively, that we had enough offensively to win the game. And so when we started ratcheting it up defensively in that second half, I knew we were going to win.
Take me through what it's like playing for Coach Sims.
I love Coach Sims. And me and Coach have both had our ups and downs throughout, the last couple of years since I've been here now, 4 years. And throughout the 3 years of me playing varsity, and like I said earlier, coming up kind of short on some of our goals the years before, I think we both kind of learned how not to do it. And so seeing the growth that Coach Sims has made as a coach I'm super grateful for it. I think that he improved this year, and he's always been a tremendous coach. He gets after everyone, but in a good way. He holds everyone accountable to winning and to doing your part about winning. And so he can be very fired up and very into it and very serious on the court. But off the court, he's an amazing, amazing person. I love Coach Sims. He'll forever be one of my best friends, forever. And I'll forever love him as a person and as a coach. He gets to know all of his players personally. And he just asks you how you're doing, and he can ask you about, more important, more personal stuff in your life because he's such a good person. And I think that played into our trust this year. Is he was more of like a friend, or kind of like a companion or a very well trusted friend that we knew wanted us as players to be our best. So when he got after us on the court, we took it positively. We took it as a source of energy instead of getting down or getting frustrated. And so Coach Sims has definitely, he trusted me, which I'm super grateful. He trusted me to, make the plays at the end of games or in the playoffs and all that stuff. And there's a quick story I have about this too. In the championship, it was kind of back and forth, and we were down most of the time, which is, you'd rather be winning, but, you're down, and coaches, start to get a little fired up when you're down and stuff don't go your way. And one of our assistant coaches and Coach Sims kind of all of a sudden kind of had this thought, or they remembered, like, let's just trust in the players to go out and play and win the game. Let's trust in them to let them go and do their thing instead of getting all fired up and maybe yelling something you shouldn't say, or maybe, causing the team to go more of a downward spiral. The coaches and Coach Sims specifically trusted us and just made adjustments. He kept the guys in there. He trusted us to go out and make the plays. And so I think Coach's level of trust in his players this year, the increase in that trust in his players was amazing. I haven't seen it in very many other coaches.
Are there any Coach Sims coachisms that you'll remember?
Yeah, there's a lot of more funny ones, more stuff that he would say all the time. I'm sure my teammates have probably said those. There's a couple of things that he says most of the time that's really good when you think about it. He says, it's one thing to know, it's another thing to do something about it. And when you really think about it, like, there's a lot of players that know the answers to, like, they know what the other team's running. They know what a player's tendencies are, but they don't do anything about it to take them out of what they're doing, or to go and take what the defense is doing and make them pay. And so Coach has taught me a ton of great lessons, but that quote specifically was one that stuck with me this year.
Take us through, what are some of your teammates have mentioned some stuff. What are some of your game day traditions? Are you superstitious at all?
Yeah, me, superstitious. I wasn't really worried about, like, me not doing a certain thing, then all of a sudden I automatically play bad. Mm-hmm. I didn't have, like, a fear, but, I always would try to eat the same thing kind of at the same time every game day. And it kind of, like, my teammates joked around about it. Like, I would go to Wendy's at 5 or 5:30 every game day and then show up to the gym and eat it while watching the JV game. And it would be the same thing every time. And I would make sure I got my homework done right when I came home from school. And then I would sit at home and watch Stephen Curry. I would watch highlights of Stephen Curry, or even guys like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, or watch documentaries like The Last Dance, or just some of these stuff about other great players, because it would get me in the right mind frame for the game. So I wouldn't have to feel it out for the first quarter and then turn it on. For me, it was, I showed up, I know what I'm eating, I'm already locked in, I'm already thinking about basketball because of what I had spent my time watching before. And so I was just ready to go. And so I would eat the same thing, and I would make sure to surround myself with other basketball related things before.
What did you have like a pregame playlist? Would you listen to any music?
I would. Now, this actually kind of changed throughout the year. So I think most players kind of think, I'm going to turn on my favorite songs and it's going to get me energized and I'll be ready to go. And that's what I did for most of the season, especially at the start. And then as the season went on, I kind of stopped. So I think in the playoffs and towards the end of region, I wouldn't. I didn't put my AirPods in and listen to anything. I would just hyper focus on the moment. I wouldn't get caught away in worrying about the game, thinking about, am I going to play well? Trying to hopefully the song in my ear makes me energized to play well. It was, no, I'm going to go make myself play well because I'm going to be focused on the game, on the moment right now, so that when I show up to the game, it's not a question. I'm ready to go. And I would also talk to my teammates. I think talking to my teammates before the game, instead of everyone kind of doing their own thing, listening to music, I would joke around with some of my teammates sometimes. I would keep it a little bit lighter. I would talk to my teammates. I'd be moving around a lot more. I wouldn't act like, this game is the end. Like if I don't play well, it's going to be the end of my life or whatever. How you see some players, they put their headphones on and their heads down and they don't talk to anyone. And to me, that makes the game bigger than it is. That kind of makes you have more emotions than you should going into the game. You kind of make it feel like, bigger than it is. Even in the championship, it was just another game. And so I knew that I was prepared. I knew that I had done what I needed to do, and I trusted my teammates. So I didn't need a song to hype me up. Just being able to play in general, in itself, was enough.
Yeah. Take me through your teammates. What do you respect about some of your teammates?
Yeah, I could go down the entire list, freshman up, but I just really love and respect everybody's kind of love for each other. We have some very different personalities on the team. Traden Bessinger and Bodie Sparrow, they're some of the more outgoing, talkative, Riker Kauser, outgoing, talkative, fun guys. And then you got, guys like me that, are kind of more to themselves. And I'm a little more, I try and just be super locked in all the time. But I just love that everybody was able to get along super well and we accepted who each one of us were as teammates. And we just loved each other. We took exactly all of our strengths, weaknesses, whatever it was, and we just went with it. We loved everything about everyone. And when people made mistakes or did something that we didn't agree with or didn't like, we just said, hey man, you're all right. Like let's go fix it next play. Or let's not do that again or stuff like that. Yeah. So I just love that there was no Davis versus Davis this year. And it was just everybody was okay with what everybody's roles were. Everybody loved each other off the court. I think off the court, we were all best friends. Like best friends. It wasn't just, hey, you're my teammate, what's up, man? High five in the hallway. It turned into 15, 20-minute conversations about something completely different than basketball. So we were just great friends, even though some of us were very different and trusted and loved each other.
You seem like a very detail-oriented person. We have a video on our channel here about our favorite basketball shoes. So you've got the GT Cut 3s, I think.
Yes.
What are you looking for in a basketball shoe, and what's your favorite shoe of all time?
Yeah. I'm going to have to go and say that the GT Cut 3s are probably my favorite shoe of all time. And I burnt through 4 pairs of them this season. Wow. Just because I played so much and I only played in those shoes. And so I would have 1 or 2 pairs for practice. And then I had a pair for the games. But then by the end of the season, I had to get another pair because they worn out. But I loved them so much. I knew exactly what I wanted. But in a basketball shoe, I've tried all kinds. I've tried the Currys, which are different. Mm-hmm. They have different grip on the bottom. And they don't squeak. They don't make sounds, but they stop on a dime.
They're almost too grippy.
Yeah, I know.
People trip over
all
myself.
The time.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
He has them.
Yeah, but I've tried some other Nike shoes, Kobe's. I've tried, I played on the Adidas Gauntlet in the summers. I had to wear Adidas shoes. And I think one of the biggest things is I think lightness, which a lot of people talk about. They got to be light shoes. And then there's kind of like the cushioning on the inside. It's kind of broad. It's kind of like a weird thing to say. But there's some shoes that have a different feel on the inside where the more you like jump in them and move around and compare that with the grip. I like when they squeak a lot. When they squeak, not crazy amounts, but when they squeak, like the Currys, it kind of catches you off guard.
Mm-hmm.
They're really good. They're really grippy, but they're kind of harder on the bottom. They're not as cushiony. They're a little bit harder, and they don't really squeak. So you can't like use, your other senses to kind of feel where you are. With the GT Cut 3s, it was kind of perfect all the way around. They were light. And then the cushion, I guess, kind of relates to like bounciness, you could say. Like when I would jump, it almost felt like those shoes kind of helped me jump better. I feel very comfortable. When I push off the floor, they don't hurt my feet. They squeak, so you can tell when you're coming to a stop or not.
I've recently fallen in love with the Book Ones, so I've got a bunch of pairs of the Book Ones, but
Oh, yeah,
we'll have
nice.
to try the GT Cut 3s.
I haven't tried those. Yeah.
Yeah, it's become a problem for me.
It's a good problem. It's a good problem.
It is a good problem to have. What do you like as a person outside of sports? And you've hinted at it a little bit, but what do you like to do outside of sports?
Yeah, so, like I said, I dive pretty deep into school. I love pushing myself academically.
Is it any subject, or are there certain subjects that really call to you?
This year I'm taking 3 AP math kind of related classes. I've got physics, chemistry, and calculus, which are all involved in math. And I've always loved math. I've always loved pushing myself to find solutions in math. And I would say in terms of school, probably math is probably my favorite. I'm not totally like a big reading English guy, but also I'm not a huge science guy, like into the other science, non-math related science stuff. So I think math is kind of my part of school. But then outside of school, I love cars.
Yeah.
I love, I don't work on them. I don't like fix them up, not that kind. I love researching like the new modern sports cars, supercars, stuff everyone loves, Lambos, Ferraris, McLaren, all that stuff. I just, on my free time, I look up videos of my favorite cars out there and, ask any of my teammates and all that stuff. They know that there's 4 things that I love. I love basketball. I love school. I love Stephen Curry, and I love cars. So yeah, I spend a lot of time talking about cars. Everywhere I go, I drive down the road. I'm looking at the cars on the road, seeing if I can see some cool cars. I go to car meets here in Utah all the time, just to kind of be around the car community. I think that's a passion of mine.
Yeah.
I love being around that stuff.
That's awesome. Can I ask you some questions from Instagram?
Yeah.
They're coming from some of your friends and teammates and stuff
for
like
sure.
that, so you never know where this is going to go.
Boy.
I don't understand what this means, but maybe you will. How does it feel getting cooked by LST every day in practice? It's from Corbin Brown.
Oh, okay. Corbin Brown. He said it cooked in practice every day.
How does it feel getting cooked by LST every day in practice? I don't know what LST
That doesn't
means.
come off the top of my head.
All
but
right. We can cut that one
I
out.
know. I do have something to say though about that.
Yeah.
About getting cooked every day in practice. The JV squad this year made it so hard for me every single day in practice.
In a good way.
In a great way.
Yeah.
And it would push me to extreme frustration. Like practices were harder than games for me. And, like you say, I had, some of the best defenders in the entire state guarding me. Their job was to take me away. Practice almost took it to another level because those guys knew all my moves. They knew how I moved. They knew my tendencies. They had been guarding me every day for the whole year. And so there were times where I was horrible in practice. There were times I couldn't even catch the ball or I couldn't score at all. And the JV team or even the sophomore team would beat us in practice. But it pushed me. It pushed me in a way that the games couldn't. It pushed me every single day to find ways to make plays happen, to just make plays. It made me get stronger. It made me become more efficient. I got to make decisions like that. Boom, boom, boom. 1 second. As soon as you catch it, you got to know what you're doing. But practices were hard. Like I would get the crap beaten out of me by the JV team because they were told to foul. They were told to bully us and to foul. And by the end of the year, I I started going back at them. And it made practices super competitive. There were times in practice where they were more competitive than the games. And our coaches did a great job of making competition a daily thing in practices, healthy competition. And so, like, I would get cooked in practice because I would just get the crap beaten out of me, and just physically, by the JV team and by the underclassmen. And then I was able to be their best friend right after. And so when I would show up to the games, it was like, wow, it was like I got all the space now, I got a better feel. I'm able to get to my spots, and it just became easy. I was able to take over and take control of what I wanted to do in games because of how hard practice was.
It's so funny you mentioned that, because Jared, when you started saying that, looked over at me. I've told him 1,000 times, I grew up playing with my best friend, and my dad was the coach. And so our practices, he'd pit us against each other, and he would never call a foul on my best friend. So I'd get the crap beat out of me. Mm-hmm. But what it did is it made games easy. Like practices were harder than the games were. And so kind of to your point, I think that's awesome. What was it like playing in the 5A, 6A All-Star game?
It was super fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really know what to expect.
It looks like you were having fun. Yeah. Like it just looked like it was a good time. Like so much intensity that goes on in the regular season. That just looked fun.
And I knew that, you got a bunch of great players there, a bunch of good skilled players there. And, coming off of winning the state championship, you're feeling pretty confident, but I just wanted to go out there and be the guy that those other guys looked at, and they were like, yeah, he's confident, but he's also, he's having fun out here. He's not just trying to score a bunch of points. He's not being quiet, doing his own thing because he doesn't know the other guys. And so I just went out there and I talked to all the guys, and I tried to, kind of joke around, just be free. And then, when I was open, I tried to kind of put on a show. I tried to go out there, and I knew that I was a good 3-point shooter. And so if I caught it, I was trying to shoot it when I caught it. And luckily, and maybe not luckily, but I made a lot. Yeah. In that game. It was really fun.
I mean, you're a competitive dude, so did it hurt a little bit that the 5A squad got you?
A little bit. I mean, yes and no.
It was kind of like the NBA All-Star game. Like everybody's cleared out.
That's what I hoped. I mean, we scored a lot. It was 170 something, 160, something like that. And I kind of just wanted it to be a good experience. I mean, the outcome really doesn't mean anything in that case. I just wanted to make sure it was like a positive experience where we could go put on a show to the people that were there, to go show people. I wanted to go show people that, I was tournament MVP champion for a reason.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. We were there. We were there watching.
So
yeah, it was a good time.
Thank you.
Some of these are these two are kind of related. How does it feel being him from Porter Hunt, and how do you achieve this much aura from Jack Wright?
Oh man. What was the first one again? How does it feel being him?
How does it feel being him? And we kind of talked about this a little bit, right? Of like you go into the game, and so many players that play basketball will never experience that idea of everyone's looking at you. Your team is relying on you, right? And there's always been this comparison between like LeBron and Jordan / Kobe, where that killer instinct, and we've talked about this a little bit before too, and we talked with Coach Sims in his interview, if you've seen that, but sometimes the best shot isn't the right play, to your point of someone might be open, but your shot is still the best shot for the team in that situation, right? So a lot of people don't understand that, and you've also mentioned some people will shy away from that, to where if I feel like I'm being a ball hog, I'm actually hurting the team by passing in certain situations. So kind of taking that question of like, how does that feel? Like, how does that feel to always have that pressure on you from your team and the other team and coaches and all this stuff?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I love it. I mean, I don't necessarily love the aspect of I get a lot of people come and talk to me and try and congratulate me. I don't do it for that reason. I don't work as hard as I work and focus on what I focus on to be liked by other people. I just want to be the best that I can be. And so I said this at our banquet when we were done with the season a couple weeks ago. But when we won the championship, obviously it's a great feeling. You've done it. And especially being a senior, coming up short before that. And, when I was younger, I really didn't win a ton of like huge tournaments or championships. And so winning it on my last high school one was very, very fulfilling for sure. but I also wasn't surprised. And I think relating that to, being, that question, the question you asked is the process of me getting to this point has now made it to where this is just who I am. Like, I don't necessarily feel a whole lot different or surprised or like on a super high note when I get a bunch of people, talking to me, congratulating me, all this, all the pressure on me, because I've done what it takes to be the person that can do it and that can be that person. And so I think for me, it's just who I've become through the process. But there is a sense of confidence that is added on top of that. For me, a lot of players, when they feel the pressure, some of them shy away. Some people kind of fold under the pressure, maybe don't perform, make more mistakes when they play in a big game. For me, it was, instead of feeling nervous, it was turning it into excitement. It was, being like, everyone expects me to make it every time that I shoot it. Everybody expects me to be the best player out there today. Like, all right, I'm going to go show you that I'm the best player today. And it made me play better. I think I've just, me being a competitor and who I am, I've always wanted that. And I think a lot of kids kind of want to be the guy. But when you start feeling the pressure and that stuff, it's different than you think. When other teams, there's a whole bunch of social media out there. There's a lot of opinions that, opposing teams, they'll talk about, they talked about me all the time. People tried to, tease me or joke about me or all this stuff from the other teams. And I was like, oh, okay. I would take that, the pressure and the opinions and what everyone was saying, and turn it into just fire. I would just turn it into energy out on the court. And as soon as I started playing, I forgot about it because I had turned it all into energy and going in to win the game. I wasn't trying to be the guy on the court so I could be cool in front of everybody. The results kind of make you that after you do it.
Well, I love like this whole conversation that we've talked about, what I'm trying to help him with. I did not have the same high school basketball career as you, so there's no way, but I was a shooter. And so I'd get people all the time that would say, you're so lucky that you're a good shooter. And I think what you've expressed too is like, they see that day, they don't see the 18 years that went before that of what you were doing when everybody else is at parties, when everybody else is playing around. Like, they don't see that.
Yeah, like when we played Westlake in the quarterfinals, I think I had 4 threes in the first, or 3 or 4 threes in the first quarter or first half, early in the game. And like 2 of them were step backs, or one of them was highly contested in the corner. In the championship game, my first shot in the game was, or my second shot was that corner 3 kind of fading out of bounds, and it went in. To me, it wasn't like that was a crazy shot. Like for me, it was, I'm shooting it because I know I'm making it and it's going in. And you're right about becoming a great shooter. I mean, there's a ton of players that aren't great shooters because you can't just wake up and be very skilled at anything in life. And so yeah, I would work. And I think it started when I was younger because I was skinnier and I was smaller and I was not strong. That was my biggest weakness, was strength and just force. And so I had to become a great skilled player. I had to become really good at shooting early on. And of course, everyone loves shooting. But I would just trying to make my shot as comfortable and with the least amount of variables in my shot that could mess it up, just making it as simple and as comfortable as possible, one motion. That led to my form being, it was very easy to see where I was missing. It was very easy, in practice to say, okay, I'm straight on, but I'm long. Or I'm a little bit right. I have good distance, but I'm a little bit left. And so I could just make the adjustment really quick because my shot form didn't have a ton of variables in it. I was lined up with the hoop. I had good wide base, and my guide hand, I kind of took my guide hand off right as I was shooting it. So it was really just where I was pushing it. If I was right, probably took my guide hand off too early. If it was left, I probably pushed it with my guide hand a little bit too much. If it was short, I got to get more arc on it. Just really simple stuff like that. I think is something that could help a lot of people become better shooters is just find a shot form that's comfortable for you, but try and make it as simple and as comfortable as you can. and then just make those little tweaks as you're shooting. Don't change your shot form because you missed 2 in a row or 3 in a row or 5 in a row. Instead of changing your shot form, maybe ask yourself where you're missing and then fix it.
You've been very generous with your time and your thoughtful responses. I kind of have one question to finish up here. You can take it one of two ways. So the initial question is, you go back, you have a time machine, and you're able to interact with freshman Coleman Atwater and give him advice. What would you tell your younger self or other kids who are coming up and they want to have a successful high school career? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I can answer both of those. First, with myself, I think I feel pretty blessed to kind of I've had a similar mentality throughout my whole high school career. I wanted to be great. I wanted to win. I wanted to blow people away with, making shots or whatever it was. But if I were to go back and tell my freshman self something, I think I would start off by asking myself one question, and it would just be something very simple, and it would be, how much do you really want to be great? Because you can. And I think I would tell that to everyone. How great do you really want to be at basketball? Because you can. You just have to do what it takes. And I think as a freshman, if I would have heard that, I probably would have decided, I want to be great. I want to win. By the time I'm a senior, I want to be big. I want to be strong. I want to be super skilled, all this stuff. And I would have worked for it. And I don't think much would have changed. Honestly, I think it's hard to say that because we won this year and I achieved my goals, most of my goals, pretty much every one of my goals basketball-wise this year. But I would just ask myself, how bad do you want it? And then I would say, because you can, go get it. And then there's one quote that I actually recently found or heard, or just a saying that I found. And I think it's going to attribute to the Davis High team next year, but just players in general when you feel pressure. Because basketball now, with the social media and the expectations, are getting higher and higher and higher. And kids are getting more and more stressed when they play and scared to make mistakes. There's something that I found, and it said, don't be under pressure, be the pressure. And I think most kids feel very pressured by whether it's their parents or their coaches or their teammates to live up to their expectations. I think it's super important for kids if they can learn to go out and try. Go out and do everything, just leave it all out on the table. Go out and, be the pressure on the other team. Go out and just attack the other team. And if you fail, if you don't try, then you're not going to get what you want anyway. But if you try, you could either still not get what you want, but you could. You could succeed if you tried. So I would just tell kids when they feel kind of scared to take a shot or do a move, or they're afraid of being a ball hog or shooting too much. Don't do dumb stuff like actually shoot it every time. Like, don't do stuff like that. But especially while you're young, you got to try some stuff. Maybe you got to be a ball hog for a game or two or a tournament, or even a whole summer. But the confidence you're going to have in yourself and what you're going to learn about yourself coming out of that by trying to do that is going to be more and more impactful, more important to your growth as a basketball player than the kid who thinks he's really good or knows he's skilled but doesn't use it, that doesn't try to use it. So I would just tell younger kids while they're young to not worry about who's better now or who looks cooler, who has more social attention or likeness right now. Just go and be yourself. Go and try stuff and go out and not worry, because it's only going to help you as you get older.
You're awesome. I appreciate you taking this time and those responses, and we'll look forward to seeing what your future looks like. And
thanks.
This was a lot of fun. So
yeah,
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's an honor to come out here and talk. So
yeah.